Throughout school, we are told that we need a good thesis to have a good essay. So what makes a thesis statement good? First, you need to understand who your audience is. Who you are speaking to plays a big role in how you say what you say. Your thesis will set the tone for your paper. Understanding your audience will help you know what kind of tone you are trying to set. This is what your voice sounds like. In order to write a good thesis statement, you first need to have the main idea or topic that you are going to write about. Elements of a thesis. Form an opinion and state it clearly. Take a definite side on a relevant issue. A thesis statement presents your opinions or thoughts on a subject or an issue. You cannot write an essay without one. A thesis statement must contain a subject and an opinion. A thesis statement answers a topic question, the one you created or the one presented to you by the instructor. A thesis statement should never contain the following: in my opinion, I think, I believe, etc. However, it may be helpful for you to begin your thesis statement rough draft with in my opinion, I believe, or I think, to make sure that you are expressing your thoughts or opinion on a specific subject or issue. When writing the final thesis statement, simply eliminate those phrases. Remember, writing is a process, and so is writing a thesis statement. Malcolm X was the son of a black separatist preacher. When his father died, Malcolm X became involved with life on the streets, which led to his imprisonment for burglary. It was in prison that he began his correspondence with Elijah Muhammad. This relationship led Malcolm X to further his education. The following excerpt is from the autobiography of Malcolm X.
A homemade education. It was because of my letters that I happened to stumble upon starting to acquire some kind of a homemade education. I became increasingly frustrated at not being able to express what I wanted to convey in letters that I wrote, especially those to Mr. Elijah Muhammad. In the street, I had been the most articulate hustler out there. I had commanded attention when I said something. But now, trying to write simple English, I not only wasn't articulate, I wasn't even functional. How would I sound writing in slang? The way I would say it. Something such as, "Look, Daddy, let me pull your coat about a cat, Elijah Muhammad." Many who today hear me somewhere in prison, or on television, or those who read something I said, will think I went to school far beyond the 8th grade. This impression is due entirely to my prison studies. I had really begun back in Charleston prison, when Bimby first made me feel envy of his stock of knowledge. Bimby had always taken charge of any conversation he was in, and I tried to emulate him. But every book I picked up had a few sentences which didn't contain anywhere from one to nearly all the words that might as well have been in Chinese. When I just skipped those words, of course, I really ended up with little idea of what the book said. So I had come to the Norfolk prison colony, still going through only book-reading motions. Pretty soon, I would have quit even those motions unless I had received the motivation that I did.
Malcolm X wrote this essay about how letter writing spurred him to become more educated. In general, his thesis might be, I became a better writer because of my letters. This might tell you what his essay is about, but it doesn't sound very interesting. It also doesn't tell you the full extent of his paper. So let's try again. Let's change it from becoming a better writer to sounding more educated. This thesis might sound like, because of my letter writing, I wanted to become more educated. In his essay, Malcolm X introduced his topic by saying, it was because of my letters that I happened to stumble upon starting to acquire some kind of a homemade education. He took the idea that he wanted to convey, made it concise yet general, so that his thesis would effectively introduce what his essay was about. In Malcolm X's paper, we could hear his voice and personality coming through his writing. He used his unique voice to develop a strong thesis that introduced his audience to his topic. Now that we've seen the characteristics of voice and a good thesis statement, you will use this to create your own thesis statements that capture your voice and introduce your subject.